What is up, you plebs? YourTotalWarMaster, and this is the second episode of this faction review and guide for Medieval 2 Total War, where we basically check factions in Medieval Total War and check 5 of their things. The first one being real life or historical background. Then we have army roster, I have normal campaign, hot seating campaign, and then I do some ratings for the faction. We start off like how cool the faction is, then how hard is the campaign difficulty, and last but not least how hard the hot seating is for that faction. Hopefully you guys will be enjoying this video. If you will, make sure to, give me a like, give me a comment down below what you think about this faction. You can join my Discord, you can join my Facebook and support me on Patreon. And today's faction, of course, is France. It is one of the cooler factions, of course, Western faction. It has some cool units. It is similar to England, but still has some differences. So let's go. Okay, so France, of course, was a real country and was basically a successor of the Carolingian Empire and West Francia. From the 12th and 13th century on, France was like the center of a vibrant cultural production and that extended across much of Western Europe, so basically it was a very powerful faction or country. It had Gothic art, which was, I guess, very beautiful. I at least find it very beautiful, and has some important things in cities like Paris, Montpellier, Toulouse, Orléans, and they had the so-called Renaissance of the 12th century, where they had lots of literature and stuff like that. Of course, in the game we start off with Philip, who was a real king. He basically started to rule in 1060. So let's check their army. So what the game says about them is their strengths are feels the best heavy cavalry in the west and good infantry in the late period, and their weakness is relatively weak infantry in the early period. Now I agree with the strengths, but I'm not sure about the weaknesses, because even though what do the English have and that these guys will have in early periods? Like if you look at England, I don't really see much difference except maybe the billmen compared to France, but they of course have your normal peasants, town militia. They do have pike militia and pikemen, which is not, I guess, super common. They have your standard 3 spear units, so spear militia, sergeant, spearmen, and armored sergeants. Of course, armored sergeants is where this stuff actually gets really good. They have some Volk militia and Volkviers, which are a very interesting unit, even though I don't use them as often. Dismounted noble knights are really cool, as long as they have dismounted feudal knights and dismounted chivalric knights. This is basically their heavy infantry roster, which I think is quite good. I think their archers or crossbowmen are actually very, very good. They have you have your peasant archers, and then you have some peasant crossbowmen, crossbow militia crossbowmen. They're nothing special. They're quite basic, but they of course have arquebusiers, how that's pronounced. And then when the stuff gets real is aventuriers and dismounted French archers and Scots Guard. I really prefer aventuriers and Scots Guard. I think they're really good, but dismounted French archers are not bad as well. Going to take a look at their cavalry, they have your basic mounted sergeants and mailed knights with some merchant cavalry militia. Then I have feudal knights, this is pretty standard. What they have special is gendarmes. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. They are supposedly a superbly well-armored professional heavy cavalry armed with lances. They're good for charges and stuff like that. Your basic general's bodyguard, and then you have some Knights Templar, Hospitallers, which are again basic units that you get at many factions. Chivalric Knights, Noble Knights, Lances. They're pretty cool, and you have some French mounted archers, something that is really useful because I think like a few French mounted archers can like destroy heavy cavalry or generals or heavy infantry or stuff like that. And then you have your artillery, the basic ballista, catapult, trebuchet, bombard. Serpentine is a bit special, I guess. Grand bombard is basically quite basic again. Culverines and basilisks are pretty good, and then you have some pike and what are these guys? Religious fanatics. They're basically I think they're like mercenary units, if I'm not mistaken. Overall, a pretty solid roster. I think they don't really have any weaknesses, even though it says they have early problems with infantry, but I don't think so. I think they're just overall a really strong and solid faction. Okay, so checking at their campaign, single player campaign, it is solid, but compared to England, I do think that is a bit harder, because as England you have a very clear-cut job. Over here, things to get a bit more interesting. Now, of course, what I would suggest you to do at first is to get rid of English in the mainland. You can come back to their British Isles. Basically, just get Khan and Trents and then the Bruges and Antwerp regions as soon as possible. You can get Dijon, Metz pretty easily. Bern normally also as well. Bordeaux is basically pick pretty much as soon as you can. You start off with I think 5 regions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. And it is quite strong. You can also say to Ajaccio, you can get rid of these two settlements. I mean, you can get them really fast. I think like immediate expansion is pretty fast, pretty good. Getting Zaragoza, Barcelona, Bordeaux, Rennes, Caen, Bruges, Antwerp, Metz, Dijon, I think, and maybe Bern. I think those settlements are quite basic to get, not too hard. But after that you'll be kind of surrounded by everyone. You'll have English in the north, Italy and Milan over here. Spain, Moors, depends what happens in Iberia, will be waiting for you over here. Maybe if you take that Pamplona, the Portuguese will want a piece of you. It could happen that you fall into war with Sicily as well if you expand to Cagliari. So after that it does get a bit harder. Because you're basically surrounded from all sides. As said in the last episode, England is easy because once you get rid of the Scots, then you have basically only 1 or maybe 2 fronts to fight on. Over here you'd have like 4 or 5, which is a bit harder, but if you're a good player, it's not that hard to beat AI, just cheese them all the time. Don't forget, you can always try to open Dijon on turn 1. You can even probably get to Metz, right? Yes. If you're good enough, you can maybe win. Is that just one? That might. Depends how good you are. If you're like extremely good, I'm pretty sure that's winnable. If you're just a casual player, they just try to get Dijon either with a spy or if they'll know them, you can siege it and get some reinforcements from Rennes. And you should have a relatively easy start to take Dijon. As I said over here in Caen, if you're good, what you can do is first beat these. First siege Caen. I'm not sure if it's mercenaries. Yeah, you can siege Caen. First get some mercenaries over here because we need it for later. I would siege Caen. Then I would beat these guys over here. Try to make them retreat to Caen. If you actually fight and win battle, they can retreat to Caen. And then you just like unsiege Caen. And then if you're a good player, you can just attack these guys who will be standing over there and get 85% of both the armies, including killing Robert, and then you get Caen basically in turn 1. If you can make them happen. If no, then you basically just attack this army, siege Caen with all of your forces, and you should be fine. Then on turn 2, go for Rennes. Should be fine. Over here, I think sieging Bordeaux holds every time. So just do that and basically wait for next turn. And I would always probably want to take this force to march down to Zaragoza. From Marseille, if you feel like you're a good player, go for Ajaccio or Genoa. If you are a bit scared, then maybe get a ship and sail around over here to help at Zaragoza. I think that is basically how we'll play the first few turns, and after that it gets a bit harder, but maybe, get rid of the older British Isles, maybe Iberia. Try to, kind of have a buffer over here, try not to fight. I wouldn't fight HRE at start. Maybe you can blitz Milan, but I would probably focus on either Britannia or Iberia, and after that's dealt with, then you can expand east. Okay, we're gonna be speaking now about the Hotseating campaign, and here is where diplomacy is extremely important. You do want to neutralize two fronts. What you can do is, first thing you can do is maybe get a pact with Scotland, because every Scottish player will want to have a pact with you to get rid of England. You can get help from him, and you can destroy England like that. It is a very good start, but you do have to be careful because HRE could be coming for you. Same goes for Milan and Portugal. What I would do in an ideal world is get pacts with HRE, Milan, and attack England and Portugal. Now you do have to know that after Scotland helps you deal with England, there is a big chance that he will want to get to HRE to betray you and to attack you, because he has nowhere to go. It's the only logical thing. So what in most cases would happen is you and Scotland attack England and win together, and then you take over Scotland as well. It is backstabbing, it's not the best. Now, of course, if you know the person who's playing Scotland is a very trustworthy person, you know, he will not betray you, then I guess you don't have to worry about that. But, you know, just imagine Scotland gets like York, Dublin, Caernarfon, Nottingham, and you have London and Caen and everything over here. Where will he go? I mean, he could go across to Denmark, but that is just like the time wasting. Before he gets enough ships to have a clear path to there, it's just gonna be a long time. I just feel like it's kind of not really worth doing that for Scotland. So he'll probably want to get a pact with probably HRE, if HRE is a good spot, and then attack you. So you have to be careful for that. Now, another way you could do this is say, okay, England, you kill Scotland, I don't care about that, and you actually go and fight HRE. Now, it is problematic because, again, once England gets rid of Scotland, he'll want to attack you, most certainly. Again, you know, hot seatings are, you can't predict them, because there's always people who betray, people who are really honorable. It's really hard to say, but what I would do, I think what is the safest thing to do is to get rid of England, try to get a pact with HRE and Milan. I think if you have this front, like maybe even give him Metz and Burns, just to say, just, you know, you can have it, I don't care. That is what I would probably do. And say, okay, Milan, you can have Ajaccio, I don't want it. And then you can focus on north and west. I think that's basically what I'm going to do. Try to get, of course, Dijon or Metz or Bern in the first turn if it opens. The spy. I think you can actually, you can get 2 cavalry units up to Metz, right? This guy. So if Metz opens, you can also get some mercenaries. So if Metz opens, you can probably get it. Dijon is relatively easily to be gotten. Bern, though, is kind of hard because I don't think you can only win this guy. This dude should not reach down to Bern, so Bern is probably off the possibility to get the first turn. But try to get one of Dijon and Metz in first turn. See what you can do up here. Siege Bordeaux. And yeah, that's basically it, what I would do in the hot seat. Now, if I have to rate France as a faction, as in how cool it is, I would probably give it an A. I like the color scheme, I like their units. It's pretty cool, pretty cool represented in the campaign. Cool units, as I said, and you know, I really like it. It's probably my second favorite faction in the game. Single player difficulty is medium. It is not as easy as probably England, but it's not like super hard or anything like that. Hot seating difficulty is medium as well. You do start quite strong, so that's, you know, of course, a good point, but you're kind of surrounded on all sides, so you'll always kind of, you know, need to be wary of who is going to betray you, who's going to attack you. It's kind of, you know, that's the difficult part of the faction, I feel like. Again, diplomacy is the key, as it's probably, you know, for most of the hot seating faction, you know, factions, if you have good diplomacy, you can basically do well. Okay, and this is it for this France review and kind of guide video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have, make sure to join the Pleb Army with liking, subscribing, commenting down below. You can join me in Discord, you can join me on Facebook. You can support me on Patreon if you want to. These are my past and current Patreons, who I'm very grateful that they have or are still supporting me. Yeah, next time I think we'll have HRE. I think that's the next one in line. So yeah, make sure to check that one out when it comes out. And until next time, fuck off.